It was raining the morning the letter came. Soft rain, the kind that makes the rosemary lean toward the kitchen window and turns the street to silver. The kettle hummed. I held my blue mug with both hands and breathed in the simple smell of ginger tea. I thought the envelope on the mat was another bill or a nice notice from the library. It was from the county. My hands were clean, but they shook when I opened it. Inside were copies, cold, tidy copies, of a deed transfer. Our family home, the house my parents built with overtime and soup and small prayers, was now in my brother's name. Evan, transferred for $10 and love, signed 2 months ago, notarized, recorded, final. I sat at the table. The wood felt cool under my palm. I could hear the rain, the kettle, and the small clock above the stove. My mother's spare key lay on the ring dish where I keep it, the same dish she gave me when Dad died. For when you need a place to set a worry, she had said, smiling with tired eyes. I picked up the key and felt how light it suddenly was. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. "We can talk later," he wrote. "Don't make this bigger than it is. I had to protect the house." Protect. A word that can do harm when it wears a mask. He had been helping more. Handling Mom's pills, sitting with her at appointments, taking care of the hard stuff. He said my soft ways didn't work on banks. He told me I was naive. He said someone had to be firm. I called Mom. The TV was too loud. Her voice was small. "Evan says it's simpler this way," she whispered. "He says you have enough to do." I closed my eyes. I could see her hand, the gentle, shaky one that remembers how to stir soup and forgets where the remote is. I could see the smooth space on the counter where the binder used to sit. The binder I made with tabs, bills, clinic, teas, meals, had gone missing the week Evan moved a notary across our threshold. I didn't shout. I didn't call him names. I set the papers side by side on the table, poured tea I didn't drink, and waited for my breath to slow. The rain kept falling. The house listened. There's a way to fight that doesn't break the dishes. I would find out how Evan got her to sign. I would learn which door he used and who held it open. I would bring light and paper, not fire. And when the room could hold it, I would tell the truth out loud about the deed, about the night he said he was protecting us, and about the secret he never thought I would dare to say in front of him, not to ruin him, to stop the ruin. I picked up the spare key and slipped it into my pocket. I wiped the table with a clean cloth. I opened the window a finger's width and said to the rain, "I will not let a borrowed voice replace my mother's. I will not let him turn our home into a trophy." The kettle clicked off. The garden stood quiet and green. I made a plan. Paid. Deed. No change. I breathed and made soup. Then the letter arrived. Deed, transfer. $10 and love. Evan's name where Dad's used to be. Recorded. Final. I thought, for a full minute, about all the small choices that gathered into this. The way Evan took Mom to the bank after her appointment, when the medicine made her nap through the afternoon. The way he told the nurse at the clinic he was the one to call, and she gets flustered. The time he talked to the nice woman from the church about the donation envelope and then put it in his pocket to drop by. The way he stayed late to fix the sink and then forgot to put the wrench back where Gad had kept it. The way he said, she gets confused when she said she didn't remember. The house holds stories like a soft pillow holds sleep. In the back of my mind, there was another story I didn't like to touch. The night 2 years ago, when Dad's watch went missing and came back in Evan's sock drawer. The week Evan's car was stolen and found burned behind the old warehouse. Insurance check arriving like a quick summer storm. The whisper at the block party about online betting and bad luck. The letter I saw once when the mail got mixed up with mine. Final notice. Delinquent personal loan? He said it was spam. He smiled. He always smiles. I don't say these things to turn him into a cartoon. He is not evil. He is a scared boy who learned early that charm opens doors faster than honesty. He loves our mother. He loves the house, too. But love without respect turns into control when fear gets big. He was behind on something. I could feel it in the way his shoulders tightened when the phone buzzed, and he stepped into the yard to answer. The house in his name meant leverage, not protection. It meant he could sell it, borrow against it, or trade it for silence if someone pushed hard enough. My mother taught us to start with key and to tell the truth in daylight. I called Dr. L and left a message for his nurse. We need a capacity check, I said, and I need to be added back to the release. I called an elder law attorney above the flower shop. The receptionist had a calm voice. She said, "Bring your papers. We'll make light for this room." I texted my neighbor, Mr. Lopez. "Can you be around Wednesday at 2?" I asked. "Just stand outside. Be a witness." He wrote back a single thumbs up and a broom emoji that made me laugh for the first time that day. I also called Nadia. Everyone needs a Nadia. I said, "I need your listening." She came with a notebook and lemon bars and eyes that do not flinch. I put the deed on the table. She read it, quiet. She said, "We will use paper and light. No shouting, no late night texts, no kitchen fights. He likes noise. We will give him daylight." Then she handed me a pen. "Write down what you know and what you only feel. Keep them separate. Feelings are true. Paper is useful." I wrote, "I know. Deed transfer recorded on March 12, Mom signed with notary present. Consideration, $10 and love. Evan filed." I wrote, "I feel. He is in trouble. Someone is calling. The house is his shield." I wrote, "I will do doctor, lawyer, county, bank. Witnesses, keep the window a finger width. Soup on Wednesday so Mom tastes something that belongs to her." The darkest secret sat behind all of this like a box in a closet you pretend you can't see. Evan had always told me one story about the year he left his job at the event company. Politics, he said. They didn't like that I did better than the manager. But there was another story I heard when I ran into his old coworker at the pharmacy. Missing deposits, a drawer short. She said, "They didn't press charges. He paid some back. He cried. He promised." I tucked that away because loving someone means you don't use every piece of dirt you find to build a wall between you. But there comes a time when a wall is already there and you have to show what it's made of before someone falls off it. I remembered also the night a man in a blue jacket stood on our porch and asked for Evan, hands in his pockets, smile thin. He used the word marker, which is a word people use in movies when debts are written on napkins.
Evan laughed and slapped his shoulder like a friend. "Next week," he said. The man didn't laugh. He looked past Evan at my mother in her chair and then back. "Next week," he said. He didn't come back. The deed transfer happened 3 weeks later. The house matters because it's a house and because of what it stands for. The pencil marks on the pantry door where Dad measured us with his hand steady and said, "Stand straight." The window Mom sits by with the rosemary leaning toward the glass. The corner where we put the tree every December so it wouldn't block the vent. The hook by the door where the keys hang so we don't miss them. I'm not going to let a paper trick turn our kitchen into a story Evan tells about how he saved us. I knew what he would say when I confronted him. He would say, "You're naive." He would say, "You don't understand how the world works." He would say, "Mom wanted it this way, even if she didn't remember what she signed." He would say, "Don't make a scene," because he thinks calm is stupid in the face of real life. He would say, "I'm protecting the house," while standing in the doorway with a smile that has worked on people who like quick answers. There is a way to fight that isn't a fight. You set a table. You invite truth. You bring paper. You ask for witnesses with kind eyes. You open a window a finger width to let the air move. You tell people their real names so they can't hide behind the ones they picked for the day. You say, "We will speak in short sentences. We will not shout. We will sign what needs signing. We will not let fear write in our binder." I made a plan. Tuesday, doctor with mom, capacity note, release update. Wednesday, elder law attorney, certified letter to Evan asking for an accounting of why he transferred the deed and on whose advice. Thursday, county recorder for copies and a timeline. Friday, family meeting in Mom's kitchen with tea on a tray, the window open, Mr. Lopez outside sweeping too long, Nadia at the end of the table with a pen and a quiet face. Saturday, if needed, a larger table, Aunt May, Pastor Ruth, Mrs. Chang, because sometimes daylight needs more eyes. I also went to my own kitchen window and opened it the small way. The rain had slowed. The rosemary leaned in. I set the deed copies on the table and placed the ring dish on top so they wouldn't curl. I put Mom's spare key in my pocket. I touched the back of the chair where Dad used to sit. "I'll keep it steady," I told the room. "I'll use paper and light. No fuss."
Tuesday morning, I arrived early at Mom's with a tote bag that held her sweater, her insurance card, and a lemon candy tucked in a pocket. The rain had relaxed into a mist. The rosemary by her window looked newly washed. I let myself in with the spare key and spoke before I reached the living room. "It's me," I said. "Don't rush." She sat in her chair with a blanket over her knees and the TV remote in her hand. The volume was up too high. I lowered it and the room exhaled. "We have the doctor today," I said. "Just a check, then tea." She squeezed my fingers. "You bring calm," she whispered, and that was enough to keep me steady. Evan arrived as I was buttoning her coat. He looked tired in the eyes and crisp at the collar, the way people look when they're juggling too many balls and want you to think it's a game. "I can take her," he said. "No need for you to get involved." "She asked me," I said, keeping my voice soft. "And you have your cause." He shrugged like he had bigger problems and waved us out with a hand that said both fine and hurry. I guided Mom to the car. The rain made a clean sound on the windshield. She watched the street like it was a memory and not a place you can stand in. At Dr. L's office, the air smelled like paper and hand soap. The nurse, Mara, had kind eyes and a cardigan that looked like it belonged in a kitchen. She greeted Mom by name and me with a nod that said she recognized me as the daughter who brings paper and tea. "We'll do a little screen," she said. "Nothing scary." In the small exam room, Dr. L asked simple questions. "What day is it? Who is the president? Can you remember these 3 words?" He said, "Rosemary, lemon, window." And I smiled because a good doctor will put truth in a test where you can reach it. Mom repeated them softly and then drew a clock. Crooked but recognizable. Dr. L made notes in neat handwriting. He asked if she wanted both her children to receive updates. "Both," she said, looking at me first. "No fuss." They printed a new release at the desk and she signed my name and Evan's. I slipped the copy into my folder like you slip a warm thing into your pocket in winter. Dr. L leaned forward. "He still has capacity to consent," he said quietly. "She needs help. She can choose. Keep things simple. Keep the kitchen the truth place." We went home and had Key. I opened the window a finger's width. The house breathed better. Evan watched us from the doorway with his arms crossed, and he said we were dramatizing. I handed him a copy of the updated release. "If you need to call," I said, "we are both on the file." He didn't take it. "I don't need a file, I need control." But then he flushed, realized he had said the quiet thing out loud, and left for his call. The door's soft click sounded sharper than usual. I wrote that down. Wednesday, I sat under the florist shop with my papers on the elder law attorney's desk. She wore a cardigan the color of rainy mornings and had a stamp that looked like it only spoke when invited. I laid the deed copies at the corner of her pad. "We need to unwind this, or at least hold it while we make a better plan." She listened. She asked clean questions. "Was your mother medically seen around the time of signing? Do you have the power of attorney copy? Did a notary record witness names?" I handed her what I had, and she nodded. She said, "We will send a letter, certified, to your brother, to the recorder's office, requesting a freeze on any sale or encumbrance until we can determine capacity and undue influence." "Undue influence," she repeated, writing it slowly like a teacher at a chalkboard. That is the polite legal way of saying someone used fear or pressure to get a signature. We keep our words gentle and our spine strong. "Can we add this?" I asked, sliding forward a list I'd made at the kitchen table. "Restore my access, bring back the binder, set weekly check-in with me, turn the TV down when we speak, window open a finger's width on Fridays." She smiled. "There's no law about Rosemary or remotes, but we can put the spirit of it in. We'll call it household decorum during care. Judges like kitchens that keep the air friendly." After the attorney's office, I walked 3 blocks to the county recorder. The building smelled like old carpet and determination. The clerk was young, with purple nails and a tone like a person who had learned to be kind and efficient at the same time. She said, "You're looking for the whole chain." She printed the deed, the transfer, the notarial page. She added, "No mortgage change filed, no liens, yet." I echoed yet, not to be dramatic, but because the simple sound belonged in my notebook. At home, I laid the papers on my kitchen table like puzzle pieces. I saw the date, 3 weeks after the man in the blue jacket stood at our door. I saw the notary's name. I saw $10 and love. It looked sweet. It was a knife. I sent the attorney's letter certified to Evan and the recorder. "Notice of dispute regarding transfer and request for temporary restraint," the header said. We used polite words. We were specific. We did not accuse. We requested. We documented. We gave a deadline for reply. "Friday tea," my heart added on its own. When I arrived at Mom's on Thursday with soup, the binder was back on the counter. Not mine, Evan's. A neat 3-ring with tabs that said security, bank, deed, phone, no clinic, no meals. The edges were sharp. The pages were full of copies of things without notes that made humans feel held. He stood behind it like a magician showing a trick. I made it right, he said. You can relax. I turned the binder like it was a loaf of bread I needed to see from all sides. Where is the schedule? I asked. The window card. He rolled his eyes and turned the TV up. Schedules are for people who don't know how to move. I put the soup on the stove and stirred. Steam rose. The rosemary by the window made the room smell like memory. We'll talk tomorrow with people who can help us see. He lifted his chin in defiance. Who? Your little team? You think Mrs. Chang and Mr. Lopez and that lawyer will do more than tire you out? The tone was familiar, a childhood taunt grown up and given a job. I let it pass me by. I tasted the broth. Don't burn your mouth, I said to myself. Let it cool and then speak. That night, I found the notary online. A woman with a friendly smile and a photo on a page that listed her services and her availability. There was a review from someone with a name I recognized, Evan's friend from the lawnmower sale. Prompt, no nonsense, trusted. I printed the page, not for court, for my binder. I also found a public filing for Evan's old employer, a year-old complaint about missing deposits, no charges, a settlement, a resignation, a phrase I did not like to see next to my brother's name, cash handling irregularities resolved. I printed that too and tucked it behind a tab I labeled background. I did not plan to throw it on the table. I planned to hold it in my hand like a match I would not light unless necessary. Friday came clear and cool, the kind of light that makes windows honest. I arrived at Mom's with tea on a tray, a small plate of lemon cookies, my folder, and a softness I had learned how to wear like armor. Mr. Lopez swept his porch and then kept sweeping. Mrs. Chang trimmed a rose on her side of the fence, even though it had no roses on it. Nadia sat at the end of the table with her notebook open, pen closed, eyes listening. Evan walked in with a man I didn't know. Tall, dark jacket, smile that didn't touch his eyes. This is Gary. He works with me. He's here to help me explain the realities. Gary nodded as if that was a kindness. We're just trying to keep everything feasible, he said, aimlessly not looking around the room. Feasible is a word people use when they're about to suggest something unkind with a straight face. Tea? I asked. He declined. I poured for Mom. Nadia took hers. Evan said no and stood with his hands on the back of a chair like he might lift it and take it with him. I laid the lawyer's letter on the table. We are asking for a temporary pause, I said. No sale, no equity lines, no new accounts in the house's name. We're asking for an accounting. We're asking for clarity. Evan sat down, the gesture a surprise. He slid his binder forward and tapped the tab that said deed. You don't understand how vulnerable this house is. Scammers, taxes. The roof needs repair. The water heater is 30 years old.
Evan's jaw tightened. You don't know everything, he said. And there it was, the boy who needed to be right when the world was turning in a direction he did not plan. I don't, I said, but I know this. I slid one more page from my folder, not the background piece, not the complaint, a printout of the text he sent me last winter when he asked for $200 for gas and sent a screenshot of low balance. The bank later showed the charge that same day at a place called Crown Bet. I circled it in yellow. This is not gas, I said. I am done being your bank. I am done letting the house be your collateral. His face went red in a way that made me want to hand him a glass of water and also shake him. "That was a mistake," he said. "A one-off." I set my pen down gently. "You called it a one-off last time too," I said. "When your car was stolen and came back in a letter from insurance, when Dad's watch went missing and came back in your drawer, when the deposit was miscounted. I am not making a list to shame you. I am making a list to stop you from using our mother as a shield." Gary gathered his pages, as if papers can run when rooms become less friendly. "We'll give you time. Until Monday, then we need to move." "You can keep your Monday," I said. "We have our own calendar." He stood. "This is a mistake," he said to Evan, as if I weren't in the room. "We'll find another way." He left without finishing his sentence. The door's soft click sounded like a relief and a warning. We sat in the quiet. The kettle clicked off. The rosemary brushed the glass. Mr. Lopez's broom made a small, steady sound on the porch. I refilled Mom's cup, then mine. "We will file to set aside the deed. It may take time. We will file to make this house safe. In the meantime, we will reverse the calls that come to you only and share them. We will put the binder back." Evan stared at the table. He looked older, not because days had passed, but because years had finally come to sit with him. "I have to cover something by Sunday," he said in a voice that wasn't for me. "They don't like waiting." He meant the men with private loans and bad weather smiles. He meant the blue jacket. He meant more than he could say. "You could have told me," I said. He laughed once and it cracked like a thin plate. "You would have said no," he said. "Yes," I said. "To this, not to you." He rubbed his eyes with the heel of his hand and looked like a boy in our kitchen again, crumbs on his chin, asking to be forgiven for a lie about cookies. I do not love him less for being that boy. I love him better for finally sitting down. I didn't pull out the complaint from his old job. Not then. Not like that. I took a breath and pulled out the ring dish. I placed Mom's spare key in it and set it between us. "Keys on the hook, no copies, no surprise notaries. Friday tea is for tea. We will put any man who says feasible outside." He cracked a smile at that. "You and your words," he said, softening. "Me and my words and my paper and my people. We will not let this house be a thing you trade." After they left, Nadia lingered. "You will have to say the hard part, the thing you've held, not to humiliate, to help him stop. Secrets grow in darkness, the thing about the deposit and the car and this betting. He will try to call it gossip. You will call it truth." "I know," I said. My stomach turned like the first hill of a drive I didn't choose. "We will do it in daylight. We will keep the window open a finger width. We will put the lemon tin on the table and the binder and the keys and the new letter. We will say what needs saying." Saturday, I walked to the block party planning meeting in Mrs. Chang's yard. She poured tea into paper cups and handed slices of cake with the kind of careful moves that keep community held together. I caught the eye of Evan's old co-worker, Jess, who had moved 3 streets over. "Can I ask you something?" I said quietly. We stood near the rosemary hedge. She told me what I already mostly knew: missing deposit, covered by a quick loan, smiles, tears, promises. He isn't a monster. He's a guy who likes the feeling money gives him when it fixes a feeling money can't actually fix. She sighed. He hates slow. The world needs slow for certain things. "Like houses," I said. "Like kitchens." She nodded, and we both watched Mrs. Chang explain to a toddler why we don't put rocks in our pockets. Sunday night, I wrote 1 page for my folder, not for court, for my mouth. What I will say, in order. I wrote, "Mom, I love you. This is not about choosing between your children. It is about making sure your choice stays your choice. Evan, I love you. You are not a villain. You are a man with a pattern. We will not let that pattern run our house. Deed transfer happened. We have asked to pause any move. No private loans. Ever. We will fix roof and water heater by asking for 3 honest estimates. We will do taxes on time. We will keep receipts in a jar. Evan, you have made money holes before. Car, deposit, bets. I am not listing to hurt you. I am listing to say no more quiet. We will help you get help. We will not be your bank. We will not be your collateral. Friday tea is for tea. The binder lives here. The window opens a finger width. The door stays gentle. The TV low when we talk. Keys on the hook. I put the page in the front of my folder. I set my hand on it like you bless a loaf. I slept. Monday morning, the certified receipt showed Evan had received the attorney's letter. He sent a text. You made this worse. You made people look at me. I read it twice. I typed back, we made light. Friday at 2, window open. Tea. He sent, fine. Then, no men. I typed, no men. He replied with nothing. That was enough. I spent Monday and Tuesday gathering small, true things. 3 roof estimates from men with ladders and sunburned necks and pencils behind their ears who did not use words like feasible, a water heater quote that was high and one that was honest, a note from the banker, no lien filed, we will call if an application appears, a sticky note from Dr. L's nurse, both daughters listed, reminder set for 3 months for check-in. On Wednesday, I made soup and fed Mom and myself. She smiled into her spoon like a girl. You look tired, she said. Eat bread. I did. The bread tasted like a plan you can bite. Thursday night, I sat at my own table and lined up the folder, the ring dish, the attorney's letter, the estimates, and the lemon tin from Mom's house that I had taken to refill. I opened it. 2 candies. I added 3 more. Under the candies, there was a small folded note I didn't know existed. My mother's handwriting, round and slow. My girls, it said. If things get loud, open a window. Put our keys on the hook. Say you love each other first, then say the hard thing. No lie is big enough to make a kitchen stop being a kitchen. No fuss. It looked like something she had written years ago and tucked away for a day she hoped would not come. Her hand had known. I put the note on top of my page under the binder clip. I exhaled. I was ready for Friday. Friday came clear and cool, the kind of day that makes windows honest. I arrived at Mom's at 1:30 with tea things in a basket and my folder under my arm. The house smelled like lemon and the faintest breath of soap. I opened the window a finger's width. The rosemary leaned in. The door closed with its soft click when I stepped into the kitchen, and I felt a quiet courage stand up inside me. I set the table like I was making a small ceremony. 2 cups for Key, 1 for Nadia, a small plate of lemon cookies, the attorney's letter on a clipboard, the roof estimates, the water heater quotes, the capacity note from Dr. L, and my 1 page that said, what I will say in order. I placed the ring dish between the cups, with Mom's spare key in it like a tiny anchor. I opened the lemon tin and saw the note again, her round handwriting. My girls, say you love each other first, then say the hard thing, no fuss. I folded it and slid it under the clipboard where my fingers could find it when they needed. Nadia arrived without knocking, the way a person does when they belong. She sat at the end of the table, closed her pen and put both hands around her cup, as if to say, I will hold what you bring. Mr. Lopez began sweeping his porch with more careful attention than the boards required. Mrs. Chang stood by her rose bush and pretended to ponder a stem with no roses. This is how a neighborhood keeps a house, by being near while not forcing the door. Mom sat in her chair, sweater neat, eyes bright in that way that means the fog has lifted a little.
Friday tea, she said, pleased, as if naming it made it more real. I kissed her hair. Friday tea, I said. At 2, Evan walked in alone. No Gary. He wore a jacket that wanted to look expensive and a face that didn't know who it belonged to yet. He shifted his weight like a boy who wants to run and a man who wants to stay. No men, he said, with a wry half smile. No men, I said, just us and paper. He sat. The chair made a small sound against the floor, then settled. I poured tea, my hand steady over the cups. I passed him one. He did not reach for it. He watched the steam rise until it disappeared. I touched the page under my hand. The words at the top calmed me like a list on a fridge. Love first, then the hard thing. Slow, no fuss. I said Mom and turned to her first because girls in kitchen should be spoken to before games on paper. I love you. This is not about making you choose. It is about making sure your choice is yours. She nodded, fingers on the saucer, eyes on our mouths. She was listening like a person who knows she is a door others try to walk through. I turned to Evan. I love you, I said, and because we are who we are, I added a small smile. You are not a villain in this house. You are a man who has a pattern. We are going to look at it together so it stops running the room. He looked down at the table. One corner of his mouth twitched. I placed the deed transfer copy between us. This happened. You moved the house into your name. You used the notary. You told Mom it was protection. We have asked to pause any move. No sale, no loan, no lien. We will let paper breathe before it is used for anything else. He reached for the page and then pulled his hand back. You don't understand how fast things are. Taxes, scams. If we look slow, we lose. We will look steady. That is different from slow. We have 3 roof estimates. We have 2 for the water heater. We have tax reminders on the whiteboard. We do not need a bridge from a man who uses the word feasible like a threat. The corner of his mouth twitched again. You always did like small words, he said, somewhat fond, somewhat cutting. They are the only kind worth using in a house. He drew a long breath through his nose. I watched his shoulders come up and then settle. Once, twice. He made me look bad, he said finally. Eye still on the paper. You sent letters. You brought people. I made light. It made a few shadows move. That is what they do when windows open. He laughed once, a fragile sound. You and your windows. Me and my windows, I agreed. And then I put my hand on the ring dish. Keys on the hook, I said softly. No copies in pockets. That includes men with loans in their jackets. He flinched, a small, honest movement, quickly smoothed over. Nadia watched, as still as a chair, eyes kind. I slid the capacity note into his line of sight. She can choose, I said, and tapped Mom's name. She chooses not to hear men who say feasible in her kitchen. She chooses not to put her house in the hands of someone who needs it to pay something else. His head came up. He looked at me like he had decided to risk honesty. I owe, he said. 2 words, plain. He swallowed. By Sunday. To whom? I asked. His mouth worked. You don't know them, he said. I can handle it. You can't, I said. That is why your jacket had Gary in it last week. I lifted the private lender estimate and put it next to his fingers. He stared at the number the way men stare at a cliff. They don't like waiting, he said again, not looking at me now, but at the table. Nobody good needs to be paid with a house. Not like that. He let out a breath. You think I want this? He said. You think I woke up one day and said, let me be the guy who needs help to keep his mother's roof from becoming someone else's cash?
No, I said. I think you woke up scared 7 years ago and learned how to make things look okay for one more week. And then you kept waking up like that until it was Friday and we all had to sit down. For a moment, nobody spoke. The kettle popped as it cooled. The rosemary brushed the window and made the sound like a small song. Mr. Lopez's broom kept its steady rhythm. Mrs. Chang snipped an invisible stem. Evan, I said gently, we are going to say the hard things. We are going to say them once with soft voices. We are not going to throw them like plates. We are going to set them on the table and let them sit. He nodded once. It looked like he had taught his neck to do it just then. You have made money holes before. The car that was stolen and came back as a check. The deposit that went missing and was covered by a quick loan and tears. The bets that said gas and turned into crown bet on a bank line item. I am not listing to draw blood. I am listing to stop a quiet that has been eating our lunch for 10 years. He closed his eyes. He did not deny. He did not argue. He sat there like a man in a small boat who decides to stop pretending the water isn't under him. You took the church envelope last fall. You told Mom you would drop it off. You did, 2 weeks late. You put cash back in it and slid it under their door and didn't think anyone saw. Even that you did better than some do. But we are not going to live like that. Not with a house, not with her name. He paid it, he said, opening his eyes, voice breaking the smallest bit. You did, I said. That is not the point. The point is, we will not be a bridge you run across with someone behind you calling your name. He pressed his fingers under his eyes, like a man trying to press tears back into his head. It didn't work. 2 escaped anyway and moved down his cheek in a clean line. You should hate me, he said, simple, stunned. I don't, I said. I am mad. I am done. I am also your sister. Those can sit in the same chair. He looked at Mom. Ma, he said, his voice the old boy voice, the one he had when he asked for the last pancake and she gave it to him because he had more growing to do. I'm sorry, he said. I told myself I was protecting us. I was protecting me. I have a problem. The last 4 words sat in the room like a new piece of furniture that was heavy and also helpful. Mom reached her hand across the table and patted his knuckles the way you pat a place on the floor to show a dog where to lay down. We keep the window open, she said, and then her voice went small. We are a kitchen. Yes, I said, we are a kitchen. I slid the lemon tin note from under my page and read it out loud, because words written by a mother have the most weight in rooms like this. My girls, if things get loud, open a window. Put our keys on the hook. Say you love each other first, then say the hard thing. No lie is big enough to make a kitchen stop being a kitchen. No fuss. I set it on the table where we could all see it. Evan made a sound like a small laugh wrapped around a sob. She always did know, he said. We're going to do 4 things, I said, because kitchens like numbers when they're carrying hard things. I held up a finger. 1. You are going to sign a quitclaim back to Mom on Monday at the attorney's office, voluntarily. Even if the court sets aside the deed later, this will put your name in the right place. Off. For now. You will not be hurt by this. You will be relieved. He nodded. Okay, he said, and it did not sound like a man giving up. It sounded like a man setting something heavy down. 2, I said, you will delete the phone numbers of any men who use umbrellas with their jackets or call money markers. You will block them. You will go to the nonprofit credit counselor on Main on Tuesday, the one who helps people make a plan in a room without a bar. You will hand them your numbers. Not me, them. He swallowed. I can do that, he said. 3, I said, you will go to the group on Thursday night in the church basement that meets for people whose hands itch when they pass a billboard that says win. Nadia will go with you for the first one and sit in the back with her notebook and not write, just to make her face familiar. Nadia nodded without making a face that said, how dare you sign me up? I will, she said. And 4, I said, you will call the men with the bad weather voices and say, I cannot do this. We are not using the house. Talk to my counselor. If you are afraid to say it, you will do it at the attorney's office with her there and the door open and the letter on her desk. He looked like a man who'd expected a shouting and found a ladder instead. What about Sunday? He said, I still owe. We will call the counselor this afternoon. You will take any cash you have been hiding and lay it out like coins before a child. We will make an arrangement that does not include our roof. If someone knocks and tries to make themselves big on our porch, Mr. Lopez will practice sweeping in a way that requires company, and I will call the police and use the words that make grown men sit down. Mr. Lopez coughed, a sound that sounded useful. He kept sweeping. Mrs. Chang snipped an invisible stem with vigor. Evan laughed then, for real. It felt like a small, old sound, like the boy at the kitchen table when Dad joked about the way the toast burned only on the left on Sundays. He leaned back and let his shoulders remember how to be shoulders and not a wall. I can do Monday, he said, voice steadying. I can sign Tuesday. I can try Thursday. I can call the men. Good, I said. Keys. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2. One to the front door, one to the side. He set them in the ring dish and they made a small sound like spoons on a plate. We all watched them sit there, 2 small silver things, being exactly what they were, without lies attached. He looked back at Mom. I'm sorry, he said, and this time his face did the whole thing it had to do. He did not break. He did not sell anything to the room. He asked with his eyes to be allowed to try, and she patted his hand again. We are a kitchen, she repeated. It covered more ground than it sounds like it should. We spent the next hour doing practical things, the way you do when you've done the hard thing and the room still asks for more. We wrote a simple schedule on the whiteboard, big letters. Monday, Leah calls bank, confirm notice. Tuesday, Evan appointment, Main Street. Wednesday, bills, both. T. Thursday, group. Friday, T, window. Saturday, rest. Sunday, church or garden. We drew a small rosemary sprig in the corner because kitchens allow for small pretty things, even when the list is heavy. We taped a no solicitation of loans notice near the door like a joke and a boundary. People like that don't read signs, Evan said. I nodded. I didn't write it for them. I wrote it for us, so I remember I can point to it and say, we have a rule. We put the binder, mine, with tabs that say clinic, bills, keys, meals, back on the counter. We wrote today's date on the first page and under it, the word steady. We placed the attorney's letter behind the tab that said house. We put the roof estimates in a manila folder labeled future problems, then laughed because that is a funny thing to call something serious. You need laughter like that in rooms like ours. When Evan stood to go, he put his palm on the door frame, the way Dad used to do when he left for night shift, and he pressed it there for a second, like he was asking the house to remember his hand in a better way than it had last month. I will see you Monday, he said to me. Tuesday, he said to Nadia. Thursday, he said to an idea that scared him enough to be good. He kissed Mom's forehead He left without taking anything that needed a hook. The door closed with a soft click. The house exhaled. I sat back down with Mom and Nadia. We drank our tea, now warm again because I had poured more. We watched the steam turn the lights soft and then vanish. Mr. Lopez came to the door and poked his head in, a man who has earned the right to be at the edge of a room. "You good?" he asked. "We're good," I said. "We have a plan." He tipped his broom like a flag and left. Nadia touched the lemon tin note with her finger. "You did it exactly like she wrote. Love, then the truth. Window, keys, kitchen." I nodded. My throat felt like it had just learned how to be my throat again. We did not burn anything. We didn't need a fire this time. Paper and light were enough. The hardest words had been said in a room that knows how to hold them. The secrets were not secrets anymore, and they were smaller in daylight than they had been in the hallway at night. The hardest thing had been not to make a scene and also not make a soft lie. We had done it. The room stayed a kitchen. Saturday, Evan came by at noon to help Mom water the rosemary and the lavender that had finally taken in the clay pot. He did not touch the binder. He did not open the TV. He stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets like a boy who remembers his mother's rule about inside voices. He talked about nothing. Weather, the man at the shop who likes to talk about fishing even if no fish are involved. Small, ordinary talk, which is the first language people learn when they are trying to speak honestly again. He did not mention Sunday. He did not mention the men with bad weather in their voices. I knew he had called the counselor because the counselor had called me to say he came. And I had written down came like it was a recipe. Sunday came and went without a knock. Monday we went to the attorney. She slid the quitclaim across the desk and he signed. The stamp made that soft thump I have come to love. It sounds like a heart deciding to be a heart again. He handed me a folded note on the way out of her office. It was a copy of something he had written. Not to us, to himself. I will not use the house to pay for my shame. Monday afternoon, we went from the attorney's upstairs office to the county recorder. The rain had softened into a mist that made the street shine. The clerk with the purple nails took the quitclaim, glanced at the notary stamp, and nodded. "We'll scan and record," she said. The sound of her stamp was the same good thump I had learned to love, like a heart deciding to keep a steady beat. On the way out, we stopped by the flower shop downstairs. Mom always likes to look at the buckets, even if we don't buy anything. I bought a little sprig of lavender for the clay pot next to the rosemary. "For patience," the woman at the counter said. "Lavender likes to be cut back, then it comes back fuller." I smiled. "That's the plan," I said. By Wednesday, the attorney sent a copy of the recorded quitclaim. We slid it behind the house tab in my binder and wrote the date in my small, careful hand. She also filed a petition to set aside the deed for undue influence, just to put the shape of the truth into a court's mouth. Evan had signed a stipulation that he agreed. That piece of paper felt like two things at once, an apology and a promise. We made other papers too. A new durable power of attorney with both of us named as co-agents, not one above the other. A simple living will that said in Mom's own round hand, "My girls will be kind to each other. No fuss." A transfer on death deed to keep lawyers away later, listing both of us with a note the attorney suggested. Any sale requires both signatures. She said, "We call it a break. Houses like breaks." At the bank, we sat at the glass desk with the woman who wore a soft scarf and knew how to make numbers feel human. We asked for alerts on any new applications. We asked for 2 signatures on any home equity or sale paperwork. We moved the utility auto pay back to the checking account that had lived on that corner of the kitchen for 30 years. We added a note in large, friendly letters, "Call both daughters for anything odd." The banker smiled. "We can do that," she said. "Most odd things calm down when 2 people answer." A social worker named Joy came on Thursday. She sat at the table and wrote our plan in clean lines, her pen slow, her eyes kind. Keys on the hook. Window open a finger's width on Friday. TV low during talks. Binder lives on the counter. Tea before hard words. "You can laugh," she said when I teased her that Rosemary had made it into an official care plan. "We write what keeps people steady." She taped a copy to the inside of the pantry door and left us a magnet with her name. "Call when you need," she said. We put the magnet on the fridge next to a drawing of a cat that looks like a cloud. We called the men with bad weather voices from the attorney's office, with her sitting in her cardigan and the door open. Evan read a sentence the counselor had helped him write. "I cannot do this," he said, voice steady. "Do not call my mother. Speak to my counselor." The first man swore and hung up. The second tried to be friendly. "We can work something out." But he didn't like the part where a nonprofit was involved. He stopped calling after 2 business days and 1 formal letter from the attorney that used words like harassment and report. On Tuesday, Evan went to the nonprofit counselor on Main. He sat in a small room with a woman who didn't sell him anything and told her his numbers. "I owe this much by mistake and this much by wish," he said, and she nodded the way people nod when they've heard it all and still want to help. He came to Mom's with a paper budget and put it on the table like a school project. "I have to sell the jet ski I never use," he laughed at himself. "It's in Gary's garage." I nodded. "We'll wave at it when it leaves," I said. Thursday night, he went to the group in the church basement. Nadia sat in the back with her notebook closed and her face kind enough to make the room feel safer. He didn't say much the first night. He drank his coffee too quickly. He learned the names of 2 men who said, "Me too," and meant it. He came home with a small list in his pocket of things to do when he wanted to buy a feeling. Call someone, walk around the block, sit with a lemon candy and let it be sweet and small. We handled the house's practical needs with human-sized steps. Mr. Lopez recommended a roofer with a ladder and a pencil behind his ear. We picked the mid-range quote and scheduled for a dry week. Evan stood with the roofer at the end of the driveway and listened to the plan like a man practicing being slow with long things. We replaced the water heater with the honest quote. Evan and I took a small photo together of the old one leaving on a dolly, as if it were a guest going out the door after a long stay. Mom waved at it and said, "Thank you," because she's polite. We had one larger meeting at the table with people who make kitchens feel like they belong to a town. Aunt May came with her cardigan buttoned wrong and a tin of cookies. Pastor Ruth came with a short poem and a willingness to sit still. Jess from Evan's old job stood in the doorway and said, "He called me. He said he was sorry," and did not make it into a speech. We said the things again, not because repetition fixes everything, but because it makes the edges softer. The deed is back. The house is safe. Friday tea is for tea. Help is here. No private loans. I did the part that felt like walking barefoot across small stones because Navi said I had to at least once. I said the secret out loud to people who could hold it. I said, "He staged the theft of his car." I looked at the table, not at anyone's face. "He did it when his fear was bigger than his courage. He took a deposit once. He gambled when he said he was buying gas. He told me,
We are not calling the police. We are doing a different kind of accountability. We will not be his bank. We will be his family." There was no gasp. There were 2 slow nods and 1 exhale. "He told me," Aunt May said quietly. "He told his mother?" Pastor Ruth asked. I said, "He did." Pastor Ruth nodded again. "Then we can begin again," she said, and read her small poem about truth being a lamp you hold near your chest. We drank tea. We said thank you. It was enough. We adjusted the whiteboard by the door as we learned. We added, "Door stays gentle," because we noticed that when voices rose, the door made a different sound at night. We added, "No adult talk in front of Mom when the TV is loud," because we had made that mistake once and watched her face close like a flower at night. We added a line that made us all smile, "Marshmallows if hard week," because the truth is you need sweetness sometimes to remind you that you can do hard things. Mom had good days and foggy days. On good days, she touched the rosemary and said, "You're doing well," to it and to us. On foggy days, she asked, "Which one are you?" And we answered with a gentle hook, "I'm Leah with the soup," or "Evan with the folder," and she nodded. On a strange afternoon, when she looked at Evan with suspicion, I pointed to the whiteboard and read our rules aloud, smiling, until her face softened. Ritual is not just for courts and fires, it is for kitchens too. On a sunny morning, we went back to Dr. L with a basket for the waiting room, a donation of granola bars for people who forget breakfast when they're scared. He listened to our update. "Good," he said. "Keep the kitchen as the truth place. Keep the window open. Keep the TV low when you speak." He put both daughters' names at the top of the file in his neat hand. "You're doing the right kind of slow." People in the neighborhood adjusted with us. Mrs. Chang stopped the blue jacket man at his second attempt to stroll by on Sunday with a smile he thought would open doors. She said, "We don't do that here," as if she were talking about a kind of plant that doesn't grow in our soil. He nodded and kept walking. Mr. Lopez became very interested in sweeping between 2 and 4 on weekdays. The sound of his broom became part of our plan. Evan sold the jet ski that lived in Gary's garage and paid a bill with cash he had earned, not borrowed. He went to the group on Thursdays and learned to say no to his own mouth. He asked the nonprofit counselor to call his phone on 8 days he knew he felt weak. He gave up 3 apps and put in their place a photo of Mom's ring dish with the keys. He told me, in a voice that made it true, "I am going to be boring for a year." I said, "You are going to be steady," and he laughed, which was correct. He got a job with a man who fixes sinks and installs water heaters. He called his hands slow after the first week and then teachable the next. He came over on Saturday to patch the hole in the pantry where a mouse had thought winter meant we were offering the spare room. He took out the trash without announcing it. He stayed for tea and did not bring lists or numbers. He sat and asked Mom about the neighbor's cat. She answered in her quiet.
We celebrated in our small way. Soup on Wednesday with extra parsley, a new towel on the oven handle, soft and blue, a string of tiny lights along the kitchen window, because light that twinkles is still light. Mom smiled and said, "Pretty," and touched them with her fingertips. We sat at the table with 11 cookies and tea, and Evan reached for the cookie tin and then pulled his hand back to let Mom go first. That little motion, all by itself, made me cry behind my cup. I kept seeing that folded note from the lemon tin in my mind when the day got heavy. Say you love each other first, then say the hard thing. It became how we did everything. When a bill came and the number looked wrong, we said, "We love this house." And then we called and asked calm questions. When Evan came with a small failure, I forgot and bought 10 scratch-offs. I said, "I love you." Then, "We are going to rip them up together and throw them away." And we did, one by one, with the back door open and the rosemary listening. There were setbacks. There always are. A text at 11 on a Saturday, "You up?" with nothing attached. I didn't answer, because that is one of my rules now. He went to the group on Sunday without me prompting. He sat in the back and listened to a man who said, "I used to be the life of the party. Now I am the life of my kitchen." And Evan laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. He sent me one word after: came. I wrote came in the binder and put a star next to it. On a Monday, a letter arrived with the old threatening tone from a collector. We brought it to the attorney. She said, "We can write back. We can ask for proof. We can set a plan that does not involve panic. You do not need to take the bait." We put her letter on top of theirs like a lid on a pot, and the room felt better. Practicing the right kind of no is a skill. We were learning. We did one more thing that made the house breathe easier. We asked a neighbor, who was a retired bookkeeper, to come over once a month and look at our binder. We call her our numbers aunt, even though she is not an aunt. She sits at the table with tea and moves her finger down lines and says, "Fine." And sometimes, "This one is high. Can we call?" She is a break with a cardigan. Houses like breaks. I learned to celebrate small, stubborn joys again. The night we used the new water heater for the first time and the pipes didn't make the shower sound like a marching band, joy. The afternoon Mom found her brush without help and said, "See, not everything is lost," joy. The moment Evan put the TV remote down when I sat at the table because he remembered that voices need other voices to be heard, joy. The soft click of the door at night without a wince behind it, joy. Forgiveness came like a thread I kept finding on the edge of my sleeve. I didn't pull it. I held it and tucked it back in and let it be part of the thing I was wearing. Some days it felt stronger than others. Some days I put it on and it fit. Some days it pinched. I didn't make a ceremony out of it. I made tea and did the next thing on the whiteboard. A few months later, Jess, from Evan's old job, knocked. She stood on the porch with a Tupperware of pasta, the universal sign of truce. She said, "He paid the last bit back. He came in with cash and a smile that wasn't selling me anything. He said he was sorry again in front of my boss. He asked how my mother was. He looked like someone who remembers roofs need time. I said thank you and meant it." She shrugged. "We are all trying," she said. We had a day in late fall when the rain came down hard and the lights flickered. The power went out for an hour. We sat at the table with candles and told stories we could tell in the dark. Mom told the one about the time Dad burned the toast only on the left for 6 Sundays in a row and blamed the oven for being political. Evan told the one about fixing the pantry hole and chasing one very offended mouse into the yard. I told the one about how we recorded a quit claim on a Monday and bought lavender downstairs and kept a house by writing things down and opening a window. If you had walked into our kitchen last week, you would have seen the whiteboard with our rules, Aunt May's cookies in a tin, the attorney's letter filed behind house, 3 roofers' business cards tacked to a cork square, the ring dish with the keys, the lemon tin with 5 candies and a folded note, and a man with his shoulders not pretending to be a wall anymore. You would have heard the kettle hum, the door soft click, and the sound of a sister saying, "I love you," before saying, "Don't do that," with a smile. We did not make a big scene out of exposing secrets. We exposed them in a kitchen, with paper and light, with a window open and the TV low. We said enough. We put the rest into hands that know what to do with harm. Counselors, attorneys, the slow group in the church basement, neighbors with brooms. We did not let a lie sit at our table and eat our soup. We did not turn our house into a courtroom. We kept it a home. The deed sat in the binder like a quiet victory. The keys hung on the hook, the rosemary leaned in, the lavender liked to be cut back. We were people who had learned to be slow for long things. We were a kitchen. One evening, after the light had gone soft and the day had been kinder than expected, Evan stood at the sink with me and dried a cup without being asked. He looked at the window, at the rosemary, at the little string of lights, and said, "I used to think you were weak because you were quiet." He shrugged. "Turns out, this is the loudest way to live."
I laughed. It is, I said. It just doesn't hurt our ears. He nodded. Thank you for making me speak in daylight. It turns out, darkness makes my mouth bad. I handed him another cup. Mine too, I said. We washed and the house listened, and the door clicked, and the night was gentle. I wrote one last note on the inside of the pantry notebook that week for days when I forget who I am and why we did all this. Tell the truth in daylight. Start with key, keys on the hook, window open a finger's width, paper in the binder. Be slow for long things. Ask for help. Love first, then say the hard thing. No fuss. It looks simple written down. It is enough. It is how we kept the house.
Some mornings still begin with rain. It taps the kitchen window in that soft way, like someone who knows the house. The kettle hums. The rosemary leans toward the glass and then stands back up, brave and green. I open the window a finger's width and let the good air in. The house feels like itself again, not the same as before. Houses keep what happens in them, but kind. The door makes its quiet click at night and it sounds like safe, not wait. The binder sits on the counter under the small lamp, edges a little worn, pages neat. The deed and the order sit behind the house tab, quiet as bread. The ring dish holds our keys. The lemon tin keeps its candies, and the folded note that tells us how to speak when our hearts are loud. We kept the simple things that saved us. Friday tea, TV low, window open, keys on the hook. A whiteboard with plain rules we don't skip even when we're tired. We write dates. We write steady. We erase and write again. The ritual makes a rhythm, and the rhythm holds us. Evan keeps showing up slow for long things. He goes to the group on Thursdays and sends one word after, came. He sits in a small chair on Tuesday nights in a room that smells like coffee and paper and tells a truth that fits in his mouth. He works with his hands and calls them useful now. He pays what he owes with money he earns, not names on paper. He laughs in small pieces and means it. He dries a cup without being asked, then puts it down without making a speech. Neighbors stayed near in their good neighbor ways. Mr. Lopez sweeps at odd hours like a man who likes the sound of wood being tended. Mrs. Chain checks the fence and tilts her head if a car looks like it doesn't belong. Aunt May brings cookies in the tin that used to squeak and now doesn't because Evan fixed the lid. Pastor Ruth walks by on Sundays and waves with a book in her hand. The house is part of a small, steady town again. Mom has strong days and foggy days. On strong days, she touches the rosemary and says, "You doing well," to it and to us. On foggy days, we read the whiteboard out loud and her face softens. She still hums while the kettle warms. She still says, "My girls," when we sit down, and "no fuss" when we try to add too much to a good plan. Her chair is by the window. The light is kind there. We learned our lesson the slow way, which is the right way for long things. Tell the truth in daylight. Start with tea. Love first, then say the hard thing. Write it down. Ask for help. Keep the window open a finger's width. Keys on the hook. Paper in the binder. Be slow for long things. No fuss. It looks simple taped inside the pantry. It's enough. We didn't win a fight. We kept a home. We didn't burn anyone. We burned the need for secrets to sit at our table. We turned big words like feasible into small words like roof and water heater and asked neighbors with ladders for honest numbers. We stopped being a bridge for someone running from a storm. We became a kitchen again. Sometimes I still take the quitclaim out and look at the stamp. It makes that soft thump in my memory, like a heart deciding to be a heart. I slide it back into the binder and write the date on the whiteboard, not because we'll forget, but because remembering in small ways keeps a day kind. Then I make soup
and the house smells like the middle of the week with help. The lavender by the rosemary got cut back twice and came back fuller. It taught us something without a lecture. We have days where we trim. We have days where we grow. We don't do either loudly. We do it with tea and a window and a quiet plan stuck to a fridge with a magnet that says joy. If you walked into our kitchen now, you would see light on the table. 2 cups, one with a ring of tea where someone got distracted by a story and set it down, a whiteboard with rules a child could read, a binder that looks like a cookbook, a ring dish with keys, the lemon tin with a folded note that has saved us more than once. You would hear the door's soft click, the kettle's hum, and the sound of a brother and sister talking about nothing and something, the way people talk when a house trusts them again. On the first big rain of spring, I stood at the sink and watched the drops stitch silver lines on the glass. I opened the window the small way. The rosemary leaned in. The kettle clicked off. Evan dried the last cup and set it on the rack. Mom touched the string of lights on the window with one finger and said, "Pretty." The door made its kind sound when I went to lock it. I said thank you to the room, to the rain, to the paper that held us steady, to the people who stood near and didn't try to take over, to the brave, slow way we chose. We are a kitchen. We are the kind that keeps keys on a hook and truth on the table. We are the kind that says love first, then the hard thing, then tea. We kept the house. That is the ending and the beginning, both at once.